Hello! In this video, we'll be going over the modeling part of the Week 8 CAD review. As always, for access to these slides, simply click the link in the description. Now in this video, I'm just going to be CADing, so if you want to learn a little bit more about the loft or the shell feature, then keep watching. But if you're more interested in just learning how to render an image, then go ahead and go to the next video. So I'm going to just go over briefly what the assignment is this week. And what you're going to need is a random object, maybe in your room or somewhere near you. And I want you to pick something that's slightly complex, so that's something that you'll be able to model in Inventor with the tools that you know, but also it's not something that can be done with one simple feature like a phone or a water bottle, unless it's a complex water bottle. But when you're done measuring with a ruler or measuring tape or even a protractor if you have a lot of angles, I want you to just send a picture of it to my email with the format given in the slide. And then if you want to end up creating a rendering of your image, I'm going to show you how to do that in another video. So with that in mind, we're going to get started. Now the objects that I've chosen is a small measuring cup. And I've already made a small model of it before, so this shouldn't be too long for me measuring things. But I'm going to start with a loft, because it's not a simple extrusion straight up. So it's got a straight side that goes into a circle on the base. So this flat side, let me measure it again. It is 1.5 inches. All right. And then the circle diameter that it's attached to is 2.5 inches. So let's see here. So I'll make a circle. It's 2.5. And then I'm going to make this line tangent to the circle. Oh, you know what? I can't do it in this order. I have to do it in the opposite order. So I'm going to start over. And sometimes that happens. You'll make a mistake and you'll realize instead of trying to fix your problem, it's easier to start over and do it a different way. And it can be frustrating, and that I know. I've had to do it plenty of times. So here what I'm doing is I'm making sure the angle is correct and that it is a chord, if you want to get fancy with the geometry terms. And since I've established that it's connecting at two parts, as soon as I dimension this, it stays as a chord, but the distance is fixed. And now I can just trim off this other part. Move my dimension if I want to make sure that it's trimmed correctly. So now that this part is done, I can sketch the top part of this measuring cup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this plane visible, and I'm going to create an offset plane. And I'll make it the height of this measuring cup. So let's see here, how tall is it? It is let's see here, 2.875. So that's 2 7/8. And I'll go ahead and start a sketch on this plane. And this shape is a little complex, but I'm going to do the best I can. So the straight edge is going to be 2 inches. So I'll just make a line over here. That's the correct angle. And it's 2 inches. And then I'm going to make sure it's the correct distance from the midpoint. So I'll make it a parametric, so that if I ever want to go back and fix this measurement to something more specific, it's really easy. And once I change it, it'll always be halfway between. And then the next thing I want to do is make sure that it is lined up with this other straight line. So I'll use this command. And something I forgot is I need to project the geometry of this shape so I can reference points on it. So we'll try again. We want to use that constraint. It lines up really nice, and we can get started on the next part. So whenever you're confronted with a complex shape, just try to break it down as best you can. So the far edge of this cup is 3¼ inches away from the line. And if you aren't really sure what I'm talking about, then as you keep watching, you'll probably understand. And so I'm going to create an arc that goes from this part to here, and then I'll just stick it up there. Do the same thing over here. And then I'll make sure they're tangent with this circle here. And then because my measuring cup doesn't come to a point, I'm going to create a fillet. Now it's generally better practice to put a fillet in after the fact. Oh, actually, I'm gonna, when I'm adjusting with the feature. But in this case, I want to make sure that the measurements are perfect, so I'm doing it right now. Let's see. So what's interesting is, when I created the fillet, the point that was at the end of this arc here actually deleted itself. So if we ever want to measure exactly where this point is, I'm going to have to make it again. And then create another dimension. That's 3.25. And now I'm going to adjust this a little more so it's a bit of a straighter curve here. Or a smoother, rather, not a straighter. Alright, so we're still not fully dimensioned. Let's move this around and see what we can change. Okay, so naturally, that's not what I want to happen. So I'm going to create a constraint to line this up with the origin. Now we're fully constrained. And lastly, before I can create a loft, I have to make sure there's one regular closed loop. So I'm going to turn this into a construction line. And as soon as I do that, I can start my loft. Now a loft is when you have two sketches on parallel planes and you want to connect them into one solid shape. So like whereas an extrusion will go straight up or straight out, a loft will be able to do this kind of thing. And I have this really neat shape, and it's filled in a solid. So naturally, a measuring cup isn't solid. And I'm going to turn off visibility here. So I'm going to use a shell feature. And what a shell does, if I can find it, I always lose it, here it is. It's in the modify category. When I click a face, it will remove the face and it will automatically remove all of the material inside. And now this thickness that I'm adjusting is going to be the thickness of each wall. And so I measured this already, it's 1/16 of an inch. And so as you can see, I now have a hollow shape, which is very convenient. So now we can create a little handle. And so I'll make this invisible as well. Remember, don't delete work planes that you're referencing. Make them invisible, because we don't want to mess up anything that we're working on. So I'm going to start a new sketch here. And the length of the handle is 1 inch. And I'm going to do the exact same thing as before. And again, I'm going to make it parametric. Okay. Now for this handle, obviously you can't see it, but it's got a very circular edge with straight lines extruding it from it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a circle out here with a diameter of, let me check, 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to create a point that is on it that will have the end distance. So that's 1 inch and 5/16. So it's 1 plus 5/16. And PEMDAS isn't necessarily followed if you space things correctly. I may have been able to do 1 space 5/16. You can always just mess around with it and make sure everything works exactly as you want it. And so we're still not sure where this point is, so I'll make sure that we're fully constraining. Okay, and then I'll do the same thing here. Okay, and now this circle knows exactly where it's supposed to be. Now finally, we gotta just connect these two, so I'll put this line here, and then put this line here. And when I use the tangent constraint, then it'll snap right into place and become fully dimensioned. I don't need to add in a measurement because there's only one possibility of how this ends up. So I'm going to go ahead and trim these little edges off. And now all we have to do is just extrude this down. And it goes down, let's see here, 1/4 of an inch. And in my measuring cup, this is shelled as well, but it also has a bit of a fillet, so we can start adding in these kind of cosmetic things. But this fillet is rather large, so I'm going to make it a 0.5. Does that seem right? That seems right. Naturally, you can't measure everything, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily matter unless you're really trying to be careful about it. I would like you to try to model things as accurately as possible, but sometimes it's just not possible to get a completely accurate thing. So I'm going to shell this to the same thickness, and bam, that's like that. And now we can add in the rest of the fillets. So I'm going to turn these back to 1/6 or 1/8. And I'm going to add in all of my little fillets. Alright, and as soon as I've done that, we have a measuring cup. And if I really wanted to, I could probably just 3D print this out and I'd be able to use it. So check out the next video if you want to learn how to render this, and I'll be using this exact shape. We'll see you there.